Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday. Happy birthday. Happy birthday to you. We love you. We do. We love you. We do. I love you. God bless you. Happy birthday to you. Good morning to everyone in this honorable house this morning. Oh, y'all sound like y'all is a choir this morning. We need to have a parliamentary choir. My God. First of all, let me say happy birthday to the speaker.
Thank you.
And may you stay forever young. You look 18 and you look like you ain't getting old, child. May God bless you and always keep you here for us. And I want to say this. Let me send a shout out to my son. Somebody told him today's your birthday. What, Daddy? Tell the speaker I say happy birthday. Goes out to my son. For my son, he say, call him Reverend Dr. Tell the Prime Minister, call him Reverend Dr. Derrick O'Clair. He only 11. And my other son, Derrick Clare Jr., and to my wife, I want to send a shout out to her, all the way from Gregory Town, Bola. The finest thing come out of Gregory Town, he looked up. And the finest thing that God ever made since sliced bread. My Biddy, my wife, Jessica Clare. Are they watching now? I take the best thing out of Gregory Town. I leave the rest for everybody else. Let's read this. Said, except the Lord build the house, they labor in vain. Except the watchman keep the city, they watch it in vain. We are the builders. I'm the watchman. So I got to watch all of y'all, see what you're doing. So when you go wrong, I can spank him until you get right. Amen. I thank God for all of y'all I hear this morning. I want to say, I listened to the budget yesterday. Boy, I hear one little thing. It sounds like it's a fish market. Amen. But I want to say, when the devil make him mad in here, don't call nobody name now. Say, Satan, the Lord God rebuke you. Don't call his name. Just say, Satan, the Lord God rebuke you. Watch it and sit down and shut up. Let us pray. Bow your head on your chest. Whatever you got, bow it. Precious Lord, take our hand and lead us on to Canaan fair and happy land, Lord, where our possession lies. God, we thank you for this day, God. This Thursday, we'll never see this Thursday before. God, we ask you, God, to bless us in a special way, God. We thank you, God, even for the speaker on this blessed day. Today is her birthday. God, strengthen her, God, and keep her, Lord. God, keep from every harm and every danger, Lord. God, we thank you right now for the Prime Minister, the PLP, the FNM. We thank you, God, for the opposition. God, we thank you, God, for everybody, God. God, as you're about to do the business of the people of this place, God, we pray, God, that thou will intervene upon us and have thy own way in Jesus' name. Remember, Satan, the Lord God rebuke you. And thou hast taught us to say, hallowed be thy name, thy kingdom come. Give us this day.
Forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us.
And lead us not into temptation. For thine is the kingdom. May the peace of God be with you all that passes all understanding.
Good morning, honorable members. Today is a blessed day indeed. I made it through to another journey in my life. And I want to invite, by way of my voice, each and every one of you to lunch with me today. And we'll be using the downstairs quarters where I would have gotten permission from both sides to use the quarters. So today is a special day for all of us. And I spared no cost. So prepare yourselves, your mind, your body, and your palates. So now, before we left, we were debating the appropriation revenue account, and I believe that we are ready to presume. And on the floor right now will be the honorable member for Fox Hill.
All right, thank you, Madam Speaker. And let me be amongst those to give voice to what you've heard already. Happy birthday to you.
Thank you very much.
And may you enjoy your 40th birthday.
Thank you very much. Very funny.
Yes, it looks good on you. So today is the 2nd of June. And on the 1st and 2nd of June, 1942, there were momentous political events in our country. That is why on the 1st of June, 1956, the late Sir Randall Fox gathered some 2,000 workers together for what was then the first Labor Day march, I understand, or I'm advised, in the Bahamas. Later, Labor Day became a public holiday. The first Friday in June is celebrated as that holiday, but it harks back to the days of the what became known as the Burma Road riots, which Doris Johnson in her book, The Quiet Revolution, marks as the beginning of the modern political era. There was an awakening of the populace of the Bahamas that before that time had individual heroes like Milo Butler, but this was the first kind of mass movement that took place. Those of you who want to read the history of what happened on the 1st and 2nd of June, there are two documents in the 1943 volumes of the House, which can be found downstairs. One is the Select Committee report of the House, which was headed by Stafford Sands, and the other was a commission of inquiry, which looked into the causes of the riots, and what they said was the immediate cause was the fight for wages, the differential in wages at the building of the Windsor Field, which is now the Lyndon Pindley International Airport, and Bahamian workers being discriminated against in terms of their pay. So that was settled after the riots, but the underlying causes was the social disequilibrium in the country, which eventually led to majority rule on the 10th of January, 1967. So on that day, 5 black men were killed: Harold McIntosh, David Smith, Roy Johnson, Donald Johnson, and James Alexander. There were 30 white men injured, 114 arrested, and many, many people went to jail as a result of it. The British Army was on the streets for 2 days. At the time, the governor of the country was the Duke of Windsor, who was himself in exile from the UK because he was suspected to be a Nazi sympathizer, and Churchill had sent him out here to get out of harm's way. So that is what happened over these 2 days. So let's remember those days because they laid the foundation to make it possible for us to be here today, for those who lost their lives, those who were injured, and of course, those who joined the fight. Lyndon Pindling at the time was 13 or 12 years old, born in 1930, so he was 12 years old, going to Western Junior School, he said. They heard about the riot because there was a Coca-Cola truck outside here. Someone took a bottle off the truck, smashed a window, and the riots started. It was instructive, he said, so that when they were planning the Black Tuesday events in 1965, they wanted to be sure that no riot would ensue, and therefore led the people after the demonstration in the House to the Southern Recreation Ground where they had a rally and dispersed. So we remember on this Labor Day, Sir Randall Fox and all those men and women who struggled from 1942, before 1942, to majority rule in 1967 for their life of service. And happy Labor Day to all workers in the country. This is, Madam Speaker, my 30th consecutive year in the Parliament. 15 years in the Senate and 15 years in the House. So I started out on the 10th of May, 1992, as a senator, and then was reappointed in 97, elected in 2002, as you know, lost the election in 2017, and now back here in 2021. And I'm deeply grateful. And I should also say that I want to remind people on this occasion what a rare opportunity it is to get in this place. It's 500,000 of us almost, and we are like 0.0016% of the people who actually get to serve here. So while you're here, I keep saying, use the opportunity, use your voice, use the opportunity, never forget the reason why you are here, which is to do good for the Bahamian public. I have also been doing these budget debates because I started out, my first career, of course, was as a journalist. And so I was made the director of public affairs of the Broadcasting Corporation on the 1st of August, 1977. And later that year a year later, became the director of news and public affairs of the Broadcasting Corporation. Thus began the storied history between my colleague here on the left and myself. He tells me he's going to write a book. But so this will be covering being around for these debates. Makes 45 years this year. They used to be in December. And I remember as a reporter sitting in this place until 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning, waiting for the heads to be finished, trying to get out just before Christmas Eve, until Hubert Ingram, when he became prime minister, changed the financial year from the 1st of January to the 1st of July as it is now. I've tried to, during the course of my career, to try and get an objectified sense of what I am and who I am as a politician. And I've developed a reputation of being somewhat of a lightning rod. And there are uses for that, but the basic philosophy I have now is that we are in a very good place where, just judging from the anecdotal information coming to me, people are quite pleased with the performance of the government thus far and wish us well. And I can tell you that, money isn't, the Americans say money is the mother's milk of politics. But I can tell you that coming up hard behind it has got to be goodwill. If you lose goodwill, you're in big trouble. Doesn't matter what you say, people don't listen to you, don't have anything to say to you, and you can never win whatever argument you get in. So we have to guard ourselves during this time on what the Americans call unforced errors, and do nothing to distract ourselves from the main mission of the government. We should avoid any fights. The union leaders, I was talking to them over the last few days, and I say, there's not a time for disputes because you have government that can settle anything that you think needs to be settled. So there's no need to row me in public. You just have to talk to me. And if you think it's taking too long, and we all know what the capacity issues, I'd come to those in the public administration are, but you just have to talk to us and we'll get it resolved. So I hope that, certainly that's the way I would be operating going forward. And I have a friend, his name is Al Dillette. He used to always say that one of the things that we ran afoul of as a government was death by 1,000 cuts. So all during the term, we keep saying, oh, that doesn't matter, that doesn't matter, that doesn't matter. But it then all adds up at the end where this avalanche and you're trying to recover just before a campaign. So if we can avoid unforced errors, let's do that. If we can just find a way to resolve problems, let's do that. But like Cecil Wallace Whitfield said, one day he showed up here after he'd gotten his cancer treatment, and he said, my philosophy going forward is this. I will not attack anybody, but if you attack me, I will get you back. So that's the way it works. There was a couple of weeks ago, if I read correctly, 12.37 inches of rainfall fell in the Bahamas or in New Providence in one day. That is, I'm told, 2 months of rainfall in 24 hours. It was a Friday, I believe, 12.37 inches of rainfall. And there was flooding across the island. And of course, people started saying, we need to dig wells, we need to put up barriers, we need to give out sandbags. And I say this because the Prime Minister, in his intervention yesterday, spoke extensively about his fight on the climate change issue. And we keep talking about climate change as if it's coming or it's a prospective thing. But I want to point out that what you see is what you get. It is actually before you. And so when we start talking about the fight for mitigation and adaptation and the monies that are needed, Mia Mottley, for example, who's the Prime Minister of Barbados, and our own Prime Minister has adopted this, was able to say that if you go and look back at the GDP, at the debt of countries in the Caribbean, fully 50% of the debt in the last 5 years, I believe, is attributed to climate change, these weather issues, and the pandemic. So we are in real trouble right now. And the problem we have is, as a small country, we are unable to use military might to force a solution. The only argument we really have is the moral argument. And it's this: the air has been used by the developed countries for centuries for free. The whole Industrial Revolution was used for free. There was no cost to it. And they were able to develop their economies, but by pumping carbon into the air. And now, when it becomes a huge problem, they're walking away from their responsibility to help those of us who are suffering as a result of it, to help solve the problem. They don't seem to accept it. Yes, they say the words, but they don't actually follow through with the actions. And so a prime minister in this country has no choice but to keep going around the world beating the drum to make sure that this message gets across, that we are in an existential position. And today there's going to be more rainfall here, and you will see the floods again. And I know people say dig wells, but digging wells, that costs a lot of money. Building seawalls costs a lot of money. And we have to find the money from somewhere. And you can't be borrowing it at 9 and 10%. It's just too much. And while we're trying to get ourselves up on our feet, another one comes this year. And then what? So we are in this invidious position where these countries must be made to know that they have to pay. And they have to pay not later, but now. They have to pay now. I would like also to thank the ambassador to CARICOM, who has presented her credentials a couple of weeks ago, who is also on the committee, which was responsible for organizing the state-recognized funeral service for the late Sir Sidney Poitier. By this time, all members of Parliament should have received, and if they haven't, it should be coming quickly, 5 of these invitations for the cultural show and for the funeral service. The cultural show will be at 7 p.m. At Atlantis on the evening of the 18th. And the church service will be at the Roman Catholic Cathedral, St. Francis, at 2 p.m. on Sunday, the 19th. Members of Parliament will be asked to provide at least 5 are being sent to each member of Parliament. This is a state-recognized service, and medals and decorations will be expected. You could also wear a guayabera, or I think it's called, what is it? National dress. national dress, choir bearer, military dress, and medals and decorations. So I just want you to be on alert for that, because I'm sure some of your constituents would want to attend the function. But I thank the Member of Parliament for Seabreeze for her work in that regard. The government has also offered to the Newry family the possibility of a state-recognized funeral for the late Eugene Newry. Dr. Newry passed away during the week, was a founding member of the NCPA, is a former diplomat of the country, having served as a diplomat in Washington, D.C. and in New York at the United Nations and at the Organization of American States, and also in the Republic of Haiti. Dr. Newry is survived by his wife, Francoise, and his children. So you can stand by for that. One of the stories from the NCPA was that this was an organization was patterned after the National Committee for Positive Action in Ghana, which was the organization that propelled Nkrumah to office in 1957 when Ghana got its independence. And so the Young Turks in the Progressive Liberal Party in the late 50s and early 60s decided that the pace of change was too slow under those who then led the party, and formed a similar organization called NCPA, which led to the ascendancy of Mr. Pinling, as he then was, to the leadership of the party. And in 1962, when Jack Kennedy came to the Bahamas to meet with John Diefenbaker at Life and Key, who's the Prime Minister of Canada, and Harold Macmillan, the Prime Minister of the UK, there was a demonstration by the NCPA outside the gates of Life and Key, and Jean says that Mr. Kennedy stopped his limousines and sent a message over to ask why were they demonstrating, and later invited a group of them to lunch the next day. And I always found that a fascinating story. We think that it's appropriate, given his support and his work for where we are as well, for this state-recognized service. We are moving, says the Prime Minister in his statement yesterday and before, toward a minimum wage of $250 a week. This is going to be a sea change for our country. They've been trying to restrain me from saying I think it ought to be higher, but not being very successful, but it should. Because believe me, when people at the minimum wage level get funding, the economy thrives because they spend and support the economy. And so we believe that this is the right thing to do, and I want to applaud the government for it. There's also, at the moment, a fact-finding mission being led by the Honorable Deputy Prime Minister to the Middle East. And with him is the Minister for Economic Affairs. And I'll tell you about the experience of interfacing with the Middle East, as you will find that there is a philosophy which they have, and you also see this to some extent in the United States. It always fascinates me that no matter when you go to these countries or you go to the United States, they're always building something. Have you ever seen the Miami International Airport, for example, when they're not constructing something, or when the road is not being built or changed? And the same thing in the Middle East. They're always building something. And I hope that this is something that we can adopt, because building and expanding causes growth, it increases wealth, and we should keep moving forward, as they say, forward ever and backward never. Yes, so in terms of my philosophy with this budget, my view is that the budget is supposed to support growth and development. And it is interesting how people are fascinated by the budget exercise. And so what you can see going forward over the next year is growth and development. In the case of the foreign ministry, we hope that we'll have a new building in the cards. Hope with the parliament that there's a new building in the cards. So these are just some examples of what could happen and what should happen in my view. The challenge always is the public administration. And I believe I said in this House before, Michael Manley, when he lost his election in 1980 to Siago, was saying that one of the reasons that the government fell, he believed, his administration fell in 1980, was that the public administration could not keep up with the pace of change of the political administration and political directorate. So we come into office, you make these decisions, and then you find out 6, 8 weeks later, nothing happens. And you think something is done, it's not done. I was talking to an investor in one of the islands in the Abacos, and he was saying that the bureaucracy is killing this country. That everything is fine. You meet the politicians, you meet the people, everybody gives you good service, but the execution is the problem. And so we had warned our predecessors about this. We see the results in the school out in Holmes Rock and the government administration building, which is now, we left it being built. I think it was stopped, reviewed, and I don't know what was it, council? It wasn't quite council, but we are back again 4.5 years later, and it's still not finished. And I'm told from the Minister of Grand Bahama that it's just about finished now. The administration building and the school must be just about finished as well, or in its final stages. But the point here is that we have to understand the capacity issues which we face. And the reason I raise this is because there's so much impatience in the public with us saying, it's been 9 months. How come this isn't done? It's been 9 months. Where's my money? And we have the same questions to ask as well. And so the country expects us over the next year or so to try and fix this as an issue. That you can't rely on it's the public administration. We have to fix it as an issue. And it comes with things, little things like, I always get into fights with people about starting things on time. I can't understand, for the life of me, I'd be sitting at some meeting in this country. It's 7 o'clock. The meeting's supposed to start at 7 o'clock. But everybody's like, it's supposed to start 7:05 or 7:10 or something. Right? And I'm asking them, why can't you start the meeting? Oh, we can start in a minute. Don't worry, we can get started, right? I said, no, get the meeting started. Just start the meeting. And so that seems to be like a cultural thing that we have, that, stall, delay, defer, anything not to get it done. Which is a good device for lawyers, of course. I used it myself. Time is money. Yes, right. Yeah, stall, delay, defer. But the point I'm making is that we have to, as a country, make a commitment to this question of doing things on a timely basis with dispatch, and making sure, because it's the only way. We've got now just over 4 years left if we go to the full term. And it's unbelievable. First of all, it's unbelievable to me that I was on a public platform after the election saying we got 60 months to go. And here it is, we now in government. And it's just, the time just goes by blindingly fast. And before you know it, we're in an election campaign again. So I want to read the statement that the Progressive Liberal Party issued on the 25th of May. It said, the Progressive Liberal Party congratulates Prime Minister and Minister of Finance, the Honorable Philip E. Davis, on his budget statement delivered in Parliament today. It sets the pathway for the forward, progressive, and resilient growth of our country. We are particularly pleased about the commitment to the hardworking public servants in the country. In addition, the restatement of the increase in the minimum wage provides meaningful help for working people. The realignments in tax policies are welcome. Homeowners in particular should benefit from these adjustments. The commitments on climate change demonstrate that we have in Mr. Davis's administration our eyes firmly set on an energy secure and sustainable future. The commitments to our young people are welcome. It is refreshing to hear that sports will again get the support it deserves and that the capital development projects connected therewith will be advanced. Thank you also for the commitments to education, to small business development, to agriculture, and to the development and upgrade of our national infrastructure, at the same time managing our fiscal affairs prudently. It is a rare opportunity that a leader gets to be a leader, and even more rare to get the opportunity as a national leader to press the reset button and to guide with a steady hand the country's national recovery. Our Prime Minister has that opportunity, and clearly he has knocked the ball out of the park. And so I want to commend that statement to colleagues, because particularly this bit about having the rare opportunity to fix problems that you, growing up in the belly of the beast, so to speak, you saw them, you said, one day I'm going to get there and I'm going to try and fix these issues, and he now has this opportunity. And our job as a supporting cast is to make sure that he can carry out that job without distraction. So in the foreign affairs budget, they've given me $30.1 million or so this year, and that's gone up to $36.2 million for the next fiscal year. And I want to therefore refer, that looks like about $5 million more. But, you know, as my friends will tell you, whatever you give me, I can spend it. And, you know, my view is you give me what you can provide for me. And all I want is, when it's time to pay, you know, let's pay. But 36 million or so and change. So here's what we promised in the blueprint of foreign affairs in our platform for the last election. We committed to advancing Bahamian interest abroad to create a greater Bahamian footprint abroad, ensure all embassies have a trade and investment attaché to assist in attracting investments to the Bahamas and expanding trade, participate actively at the United Nations with a view to secure non-permanent seats on influential councils, and you know that we are running for a seat at the Security Council for the year 31-32. Establish the Foreign Service Institute with the University of the Bahamas for training and developing of all foreign representatives abroad. We've done that. We're naming the institute after the late officer who died in Italy, Al Ray Ramsey. So it's going to be called, when it's formally convened, the Al Ray Ramsey Institute for Foreign Affairs. Fully implement foreign service orders. Actively engage and leverage the Bahamian diaspora to contribute to national development. Implement international secondment programs for international companies who hold Bahamas work permits and others. Increase embassies, consulates, and airlift with strategic allies in Central and South America, Africa, and the Middle East. Commit to a dedicated building for the permanent place of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and strengthen international cooperation on climate change and mitigation. As the member for Pine Ridge said to me, all the boxes have been ticked. So that's it. I can move on, right? Yeah, so we've done that. Yeah. So in terms of the expansion, though, we have increased the hires, as you will note from the budget book. But there is a plan to open an office in Toronto for Bahamians there. Los Angeles, these are consulates, looking at Dubai, Jamaica, Trinidad, and Panama. We spoke about increasing our footprint. The Prime Minister spoke about this yesterday, and he will be attending the Summit of Americas shortly in Los Angeles, and we'll get an opportunity to interface with other countries across the hemisphere. Now, you will note in the run-up to the discussions on this that there's been a concern that 3 countries have not been invited to the summit. They are Cuba, Venezuela, and Nicaragua. And we have spoken up to the Americans. There are some countries that have decided, because those countries are not being invited, that they will not attend. Most notably, Mexico. The president of Mexico has said he will not go. He'll send his foreign minister instead. And for other reasons, Bolivia and Brazil have also said the same thing. So we're not sure to what extent this is going to be successful. But from the point of view of the Bahamas, our point is the Prime Minister wants to make that point to the Americans directly, that you must have a summit of all countries of the hemisphere and not some countries of the hemisphere. And the fact that you disagree with the internal governance of a particular country is not a sufficient reason to deny someone the seat at the table. So that is a point which our Prime Minister will make. Later this year, he will also attend his first meeting as the head of government of the Bahamas at the CARICOM Heads of Government meeting, which takes place in Paramaribo in Suriname. And this will be, again, an opportunity to be a part of the sub-regional group. Now, I say sub-regional because you have the world body, the United Nations, you have the hemispheric body, which is the Organization of American States, and then you have the regional group, which is CARICOM. And people say, why are we part of these organizations? And it is because in the efficiency of relations in the international arena, it is simpler and easier for people to belong to groups and organizations. And so we speak to one another in groups and organizations and try to come to functional cooperation with various bodies as we face the world. And our sub-regional group is CARICOM. That meeting will take place in early July. And then following, but just before that, he will travel to Rwanda. Kigali is the capital of Rwanda for his first meeting of the heads of government of the Commonwealth. Now, the Commonwealth, you know, is the rump, so to speak, of what was once called the British Empire. And of course, there are some who still believe it's the British Empire. I think they may find out otherwise when this meeting takes place. But I think that has died. But at that meeting will be 54 countries, including all of the countries of CARICOM, with the exception of Suriname, that's not a member of the Commonwealth. And the interesting thing is, I found out that there are 2 Bahamians who actually work in Kigali. They're air traffic controllers. And so people say, why are we going to these places? But, you know, Bahamians are everywhere, and their interests have to be protected. So I just want to make that as in parenthesis or a little side note. But at the meeting, it is expected that there will be a vote or an attempt to reach consensus on the support for Patricia Scotland, Baroness Patricia Scotland, to resume her term as the Secretary General of the Commonwealth. And the Bahamas supports her re-election. We have consistently supported her, both the last administration and this administration. We support her re-election. And there's a lot of stuff floating in the air, but as far as we are concerned, this is largely propaganda. Issues which cannot be identified, and any issue which has been identified, we've been able to look into those issues and are satisfied that those issues do not amount to anything of importance. She has been a friend for small island developing states. She's been a voice on the issue of climate change, and we think that that voice needs to continue, and therefore she has our support. So one of the reasons we also think it is important to be part of the Commonwealth is, again, the efficiency of relations. We have been asked by the cabinet to conclude diplomatic relations with Tuvalu, which is a member of the Commonwealth, with Gabon, which is a country in West Africa. And those are being executed now. I think also Saudi Arabia. We are seeking to expand relations with them. As you say, the Deputy Prime Minister is headed there in a short while. So, but when you have this aggregation of 53 countries getting together, it's a rare opportunity. We can't afford to have embassies in 192 countries. We can't do it. We have expanded the range of thematic ambassadors and non-resident ambassadors, but they operate from home. The point is, at some point, you have to have an interface, and it is cheaper and more efficient to be a part of these sub-regional groups or these groups across the world where you every once in a while you get together and you're able to have relationships with people that you would not normally get to see or meet. So that is what's happening there with the visit to Kigali. And then later in the year, there is the COP27, which will take place in Egypt. And again, it's beating the drum on climate change, which I say is here with us before our very eyes. If I may turn for a bit to our position on Venezuela, we have reversed the position of our predecessors with regard to the recognition of the Venezuelan government. And this is one of the issues that arose with the Summit of the Americas. You also know that in the case of Ukraine, that we have lined ourselves up on the side of the Western countries with regard to this and have issued statements and supported resolutions which decry the invasion of Ukraine and the actions of the Russian state toward Ukraine. We expect to complete or begin work which was begun by our predecessors, our immediate predecessors, with regard to the properties owned in Washington, D.C. and in London. Buildings need substantial maintenance. The building in D.C. has what is about $6 million that's going to be required to fix the building. It has been abandoned now for 2 years. The estimates were done, but the building, which is really valuable real estate sitting on Massachusetts Avenue, which is Embassy Row in the U.S., has just been sitting there empty for 2 years. And I'm sure, given the shortages that have taken place in the supply chain, which has bumped up all the costs, I mean, I shudder to think what the costs are actually going to be. But the building cannot just be a wasted asset. It has to be repaired. And similarly, the building in London needs substantial work. The buildings in London need substantial work. And we look forward to getting started on that, as well as the building which is called Bahamas House in New York, in Harlem. It was bought, I believe, in 1937 by Bahamians who lived in New York. The Bahamas American Association, I think, was founded in the early 20th century because some men who had moved to New York from Andros felt that the British Council was not looking after their affairs, so they formed this association and later were able to buy this building, which is worth, I think, about $2 million, but also is a wasted asset. And I'm unfortunately advised that there's a tax issue again with the building, which I've asked our Consul General to see if he can get on top of that issue, because we need to work on that building as well. I want to thank all the diplomats who work for us. They do a yeoman's work. And to get back to one of the points which I said about the Foreign Service orders, is that there is, I think it isn't overstating it too much to say, a high degree of disgruntlement amongst the staff of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs about the fact that so many of their careers have actually been on hold. Some people have been working 8 years, 12 years, no promotions. Some of them are still administrative cadets or administrative cadet trainees and been sitting in this rank for 8 years. We put in place a set of orders called the Foreign Service Orders to wean the Foreign Service off from the general public service. But for 4.5 years, nothing happened with these orders. And so these people's careers have been on hold. Our predecessors decided to use contract work, which is fine because you're able to jump over the public service rules with regard to pay, but it doesn't actually set up a career path for people. So we've got a task force now headed by Ambassador Chet Nemore, working with some other officials in the ministry to try and get on top of that issue so people's career paths can now resume and move forward. And I hope that this will do something to ease some of the tension on this point. There is a kind of fault line building up between those who have been there historically and those who've come in the last year and getting posted. And so there are all of those issues. So hopefully we'll get that resolved. And I think that the Director General, who's come back, Rhoda Jackson, will be working with a permanent secretary. I want to thank Donella Bodie, who came in to help us in a real fix that we were in trying to get on top of some of these personnel issues. And, I wish all of them well, and their support is unequivocal from the government of the Bahamas for the work they do. If I might turn now to the question of Fox Hill. When I was in opposition and served in that other place, one of the points that I made was the development of the Fox Hill Community Center. This was, in my view, by any measure, an extraordinary gift of a government to a community. The history of the building is that somewhere around 1989, George Mackey, who was my predecessor in Fox Hill, announced that he was going to build a community center. Some 27 years later, that community center was completed. And I give that timeline because those of us who are impatient for things to get done sometimes understand how difficult it is to actually get things done. And one of the things I often say is sometimes you find out that the people who were campaigning on your side don't actually believe the same things you believe when they actually get to office. So you'll find that sometimes. And so there's a struggle, there's a dynamic struggle which takes place to get things done. And you have to push and push and push and never take no for an answer. So George Mackey announced in 1989 this community center. It's commissioned in 2017. And George, what he did was he had the land vested in a nonprofit called the Fox Hill Community Center. And that nonprofit owns the building. The nonprofit has on its board all of the pastors of Fox Hill, the representatives of the Junkanoo Group, and of the Fox Hill Festival Committee. And they own the facility. So we got some money from the IDB through the Citizens Justice Initiative program. And then Prime Minister Christie came to Fox Hill in 2016, which he always did, for Fox Hill Day. And he announced that the government would commit all of the funds to complete the project, which he did. And the Bahamas Striping Group was hired in a PPP to finish the building. And it was finished in 2017, including a swimming pool. And the swimming pool is 25 meters, 4 lanes. So it can be a practice pool for people who are interested in training for the Olympics. The building has an auditorium, and the auditorium was put in place mainly because the Sandlands Primary School does not have an auditorium for the children, and they'll be using it in a couple of weeks for graduation. I understand the GLAT exams took place a couple of days ago there, so it's now being utilized for the purposes which were envisaged. It was my deep regret that during the interregnum, this 4.5 years, the facility went backwards. And I did my best to show that this facility, which had been given to the people of Fox Hill, was simply abandoned. The pool went green. I got, during my time out, I got 20 computers donated by a nonprofit in the United States. And the computers sat there until I went there 6 weeks ago and put the programs on the computers. So the computers now, but they did nothing for 4.5 years. So you have this huge building, this huge facility that was not used for the purposes for which it was constructed. And it just seemed an enormous waste of capital. And I just couldn't figure out why, if you were handed a gift, it's not possible to simply carry on the work. In any event, we have passed that now. The pool is blue again, and the children were able to go swimming again. And we hope all during the summertime there'll be programs. And the one thing that was really confounding was the building was meant to be run totally on solar. So there's solar panels that have been on the roof since 2017, but unused. So of course, I, with my fast self, would go by and ask, well, why isn't solar being used? So they said, well, the Ministry of Works requires a ladder to get up to the roof to inspect the solar panels to be sure that no, I'm not kidding. Yeah, that they require a ladder so that they can inspect the connection between the solar panel and the power supply coming from the generators and from the grid. So I said, well, that seems easy enough. Why don't you just use a bucket truck to do it? Just go up on the roof and inspect it. They said, no. It requires a permanent ladder to be put up. Now, so what they actually require is, like, you have an emergency ladder on those buildings. So there has to be a ladder which is put up on the side of the building. So anytime the Ministry of Works wants to inspect it, they can climb up the ladder and go and inspect it. But it took, again, 4.5 years to construct a ladder.
Case of the missing ladder.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, Madam Speaker, you just cannot make this stuff up. You can't make this stuff up, you know.
Not today, Minister.
Yeah.
Not today.
Not in the new day. Not in the new day. Eh? Not in the new day.
Well,
Not in the new day.
well, the ladder is there now.
Yeah.
The ladder is there
Not
now.
in the new day.
Yeah. But we had to do some additional work because, you know, little children being what they were able to, even though they have razor wire fence and all the rest, the little ones were able to breach the fence and jump into the swimming pool. So we have to do something to make sure that is protected. So because you don't want to have any accidents take place. But the fact is, this is a gift to the people of Fox Hill. And what I said during the whole time I was in opposition is, do not let these folk bamboozle you into giving up ownership of this asset and saying, give it back to the government, because that would be a sure way for the whole thing to fall apart. A sure way for the whole thing to fall apart. I say, maintain at all costs your independence, because you know, again, as I was saying with the Prime Minister here, you get this rare opportunity to be the leader of a country. You get this rare opportunity to get this gift. Do not squander it. Do not give it away. Protect it and guard it as much as you can. And therefore, I am really grateful to the leaders of the Fox Hill community for protecting that asset, and I want to pay tribute to them for staying the course. And the other thing which I promised was the question of title to land in Fox Hill. So you have a problem which exists, and this probably also exists in St. Anne's, where people have been on land for generations and have no title to property. So there's property disputes all the time. Who owns what? So back in 1990, George Mackey of blessed memory acquired the Sugarman Estate, which is a tract of land in between Eastwood and Fox Hill. And he acquired that land because people from Fox Hill, even though it was owned by Sugarman, remember?
Yeah, Sugarman.
Yeah, Sugarman, right, Sugarman. People had been living on the land and were in actual occupation of the land, but had no title to the land. So he acquired the land. It was vested in the Minister of Housing. And I was able to get the then Minister of Housing, Neville Wisdom, to agree that we would have a survey done of the properties, and all people who were in actual occupation of the land would get a surveyor would do it, and they would since the title was vested in the Minister of Housing, the Minister of Housing would then convey the land to those people who were in actual occupation. So we lost office in 2007, and the new administration came in, and I think Ken Russell was the Minister of Housing, and we worked with him and agreed to continue what Minister Wisdom had started. And just before the general election, we were able to conclude, and we were able to vest the properties in the people who were in actual occupation. So that was good. So I figured that in campaigning during this last campaign, that this is a formula to resolving all of these problems, because the Quieting of Titles Act is just so expensive to do. Difficult, it takes a long time. So thanks to the government again and this Prime Minister, the decisions made, the surveyors have been out for people who've identified themselves as having these issues. And the idea is to do a similar exercise for the properties to vest in the government, and then to reconvey them to the people who are in actual occupation of the land. And I thank the administration for this. This is great and should help resolve some of the problems. And this is something which is important to repeat. I was in 1992, I was saying that's how I started out here. I was appointed as one of these senators in the middle, called so-called independent senators. Of course, there's no such thing, but because the Prime Minister at the time, Hubert Ingraham, did the appointment. And but I remember this. So the House of Assembly is opening, the state opening of Parliament. And this is 92. So all the F&M members of Parliament and senators are over in the Cabinet office. And all the PLP members and senators are downstairs in the opposition committee room. And there's me by my lonesome trying to make chat with the policeman outside. And I said to myself, I will never find myself in this position again, where I'm standing on my own. That it always pays to be part of a group. And so, you know, and that is a
Yeah.
No, I wasn't
agree.
invited. I wasn't invited. I was,
Some independence in
yeah, so, um, and as things moved toward 1997, I remember going to Arthur Hanna's house. I think it was for a reception of some kind. And I met Perry Christie, as he then was, leader of the opposition. And we were sitting in Mr. Hanna's drawing room. And somehow I ended up with Mrs. Bernadette Christie and myself in the room. And she started saying to me, when are you going to rejoin the PLP? When are you coming back to the PLP? You know, and I'm sort of hemming and hawing. And she says, I want you to rejoin the PLP. She says, I want you to become a minister. And when you become a minister, I can come to you and ask you for things, and you could do it. That made a lot of sense to me. So here I am. And so I just want to commend that story to you because, again, the idea is that we're here to do things for people. And I try, as impatient as they get, you know, these days because they have access to you through these phones. If you don't answer within 2 seconds, why are you treating me this way? You're ignoring me. So there's that. But I always think that the thing to do is to always find a way to say yes rather than no. Always try and find a way to say yes rather than no. And of course, you, as a politician, have to develop the art of deflecting because no is not a pleasant thing to say to people. And people, no matter how frank they tell you they want you to be, don't, you know, homie, don't play that. You just better find a way to say, I'll get to it later. You know, let me try my best to assist. Oh, you got it. See, he's a quick learner. But I look into it, you know. I can see what I can do. Yeah, any more? I may have missed some. But the point is to do your best to see if you can get it done. And so that is one of the reasons why earlier in the year we agreed with the other side to form this committee for the management of the Parliament and to do our best to improve the benefits and allowances and privileges of members of Parliament to support the work that you do. No member of Parliament, in my view, or we should have passed the era in this country where a member of Parliament becomes impecunious because he chose to serve his country. That should not happen. Your work should be supported in its entirety so long as you are in the position, should be supported by the government of the Bahamas. And
you shouldn't be broke. Impecunious.
Yes, right.
Tell what it means.
The Prime Minister's reminded me that impecunious means you shouldn't be broke. You shouldn't go broke. And of course, there's so many stories of that. I had a first cousin, my mother's first cousin, who, in his anxiety to help people, was busy backing notes at the bank. And I remember when I first got appointed to the Senate, you know, Harold Longley, God bless him, he's the manager of the Royal Bank of Canada, right here, the main branch. And he said to me, look, people who come to you and say they want you to back a note, you tell them, come see me at the Royal Bank, and I'll deal with that. But do not do that. It's a sure path to ruin, because people may have the best of intentions, but you end up with the bank calling you and the loan is in default. So you try your best to help people, and we are trying to work to a place where you get the full support of the government for the work which you do as a member of Parliament. So That, I hope, includes, well, I think the opposition has the list of all the things which we think, having gleaned from them, all the things which we think ought to be a part of it. But it also includes an amendment to the law, which gives the Parliament its independence and which will also put us in a new building with proper facilities. And hope that we just don't dissolve into a row over this. This is really important to do. And as I said to the Prime Minister after Cabinet one day, once you got the opportunity to do these things, you better do them before, goodwill evaporates and everybody turns sour toward what you're doing. So that's an important thing which is coming, and I will look to the House's support for it. This morning, I got a number of calls, one of which from the Reverend Canon Sebastian Campbell, to ask us about the announcement on Queen's Honors. And some people were saying that they had made nominations for national honors and were shocked to see that their nominees had not been chosen. So I had to say to them that the honors that were announced over the last days are not the national honors. The national honors are conferred as a result of an act of the Parliament of the Bahamas by the Governor General, who is the Chancellor of the Orders. And those honors will be announced on the 10th of January and will be conferred, sorry, the 10th of July. And the honors will be conferred on the second Monday in October, which is National Heroes Day. It is important for us to, I was really heartened by the number of nominations that were advanced by the Bahamian public. It's clear that the honors are now gaining currency, and we should come to a point where the British honors fall away. It just seems to me very strange to be talking about the Order of the British Empire for an empire that no longer exists. So we have to get to that. But we, Mr. Ingram, I think he was Prime Minister, there I was talking about these Bahamian honors and how we must abolish the British honors. And he gave my mother a Queen's Certificate and Badge of Honor. So he saw me someplace, he said, well, what you can say now? So, that's what you say in chess, you say check. Because my mother was very proud of it. She had it up on the wall. So, nope. So, that was her honor. But we have to get to a point where it's the Bahamian honors alone. And we're working toward that. So I thank you, Reverend Sebastian Campbell. I did tell him that, the work of revolution is never done. So, I'm in a cabinet. I'm bound by certain rules and conventions and support the decisions of the cabinet. But he, since he is in civil society, can go out and preach the gospel, the good news, far and wide. Which I'm sure he's quite able to do. So I commend the budget to the House. I support its provisions. I support the work of the government. I'm pleased to be back in this position. I'm like Mark Twain, who said, reports of my death are greatly exaggerated. And I look forward to election 2026 and putting my name in the hat again. And yes, hopefully in a new parliament. And I wish all of you the best. And as they say at the end of these things with the, the state opening of parliament, which I hope we have one later this year in October, may Almighty God, I pray Almighty God rests upon your counsels.
Thank you, Honorable Member Asmini. The chair recognizes the Honorable Member for Nassau Village.
Good morning. I would like to thank God for his continued blessings. And also I would like to recognize my loving family and loved ones who continuously support me throughout my journey. And Madam Speaker, I wish to wish you a happy birthday on your day.
Thank you. Thank you.
As we continue on. Madam Speaker, I rise today dreaming about the unmatched possibilities of promise, prosperity, potential, and partnership within our indomitable Bahamaland. We are a country full of unsurpassed talent, incredible intellect, unyielding will, and unrelenting spirit. Each day I witness the humble and dogmatic drive of the constituents of my dear Nassau Village. I am reminded to continuously put conscious thoughts and planned actions into fruition daily, to keep moving forward despite challenging circumstances, and to keep focused on the prosperous way forward. Madam Speaker, before I continue, I'd like to recognize Ms. Kalisa Archer, one of our constituency's shining stars, who recently graduated from the University of the Bahamas with her Bachelor's of Science degree in nursing with distinction. This exemplifies the way forward to enhance and upgrade oneself through hard work and remove the stigma of dependency. Madam Speaker, capacity building and community engagement initiatives such as the most recently block traffic skills registration and job fair saw a partnership between civil society, Street Legends Organization, BTVI, the Ministry of Labor, and the Kiwanis Club of Montague, and underscores the way forward to build compassionate and thriving communities. Within our blueprint of change and for change, rather, we spoke about civic engagement. We spoke about engaging community partners so that we could achieve our own agendas throughout our various constituencies and nationally. Madam Speaker, I was pleased to oversee the vast infrastructural improvements like repairing of potholes, trimming of large trees in preparation for the hurricane season, and the paving of the Taylor Street entrance and also the Alexandria Boulevard. And I would like to publicly thank once again the Honorable Member for Fort Charlotte and Minister of Works for assisting us in this endeavor. You see, Madam Speaker, this highlights the way forward. This illustrates our administration's dedication to a new, revitalized Nassau Village, a constituency that all can enjoy and be proud of. The way forward envisions a Bahamas where all Bahamians continue to benefit from wise choices this administration makes for its people. It's truly the clarion call and indicative of a new day. Madam Speaker, my contribution today focuses on the way forward for every Bahamian and how each of us will benefit from our administration's diligent choices, proposed developments, and calculated plans spanning the gamut of our society, from minimum wage to the tangible benefits of cryptocurrency on our nation, to the housing development for young people, resulting in first-time exuberant homeowners. This new day marks a transformational way forward, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, our administration is keenly aware that the cost of living within the Bahamas has increased and continues to rise. To combat this and dissuade the rising costs associated with inflation, our administration submitted a proposal to the Bahamas Public Service Union to increase the minimum wage in the public sector with incremental increases starting July 2020. Madam Speaker, these are the conscientious choices that our administration has taken to really impact the everyday Bahamian, to really impact the everyday Nassau villager. In 2016, there were an approximate 20,310 employees in the public service, ranging from members of the uniformed branches to employees of the Public Health Hospital Authority. This increase in minimum wage will reach and positively impact tens of thousands of Bahamians who at this time are still grappling with the economic effects of COVID pandemic on the Bahamian economy. Madam Speaker, I was delighted and pleased to know that these increases in salaries will result in higher real purchasing power for Bahamians. The reality is that Bahamians, I would say, were impacted negatively and were robbed of some form of dignity as they went into the various stores and found that they had to decide and deliberate between essential items. I was pleased to know that this was being tackled by our administration. This tangible benefit will fill the pockets of Bahamians and further reward them for years of dedicated work in the public service, Madam Speaker. Coupled with wage increase, this is the deliberate action taken to combat the overdue promotions in the public service. In just 2 months since taking office, my colleague, and I honor her and mention her publicly, the Honorable Pia Glover Roll, Minister of State, for the public service has ensured that promotional letters were issued to eligible officers throughout the various uniform branches, Madam Speaker. A number of public servants who are posted at uniform branches in the various agencies are in Nassau Village, and I would just convey their thanks personally to you. Madam Speaker, these public servants will finally get what is entitled to them by addressing this backlog. Public services modernization is transformational to our administration's way forward. Both the minimum wage increase and forthcoming promotional exercises will put more money in the hands of Bahamians. Madam Speaker, as a young person under 35, 34, I took under 35, 34 years of age, right? I took extreme delight in knowing that our leader, the Honorable Philip Brave Davis, the member for Kidd Island, Runke, and San Salvador, put extreme emphasis on the concessions for first-time homeowners and allowed for affordable housing. Madam Speaker, the concessions to have first-time homeowners construct or purchase building materials duty-free, $40,000 in cash return for any VAT paid on construction. These are the types of initiatives that young persons thrive and look forward to, Madam Speaker. Before this, home ownership under 40 was virtually a dream. Having to procure life insurance, having to procure down payments, having to, I would say, even enter into ASU draws just to ensure that you meet some of the requirements. It forced the young persons of the Bahamas to really reconsider what it meant to be homeowners and relegated us to renters. Madam Speaker, I publicly thank the Honorable Prime Minister for his efforts for pushing this forward. Madam Speaker, to be informed and to find out that $250,000 to $300,000 reduction on property transfers and value-added tax on property was initiated. I was delighted because it continues in line with what we believe as home ownership being a priority. The reality is that the Progressive Liberal Party is known for building. The Progressive Liberal Party is known for putting persons in their own homes and in their own houses. And I am delighted to see that this is continuing under this New Day administration, Madam Speaker. In addition, I would just like to also thank my colleague and an honorable member for Elizabeth for the Pinecrest subdivision that she most recently announced on the 27th of May, 2022. Just 6 days ago, It symbolizes the partnership that government can enter into with the private sector, and through a collaborative measure, we're able to provide and put citizens in houses. This is the type of initiatives, and these are the type of considerations that this New Day administration prides itself on. To think that homes, 3-bedroom, 2 baths, starting at $169,000, were now available for the everyday Bahamian, for the everyday young person, an attainable goal, something that they could be proud of. I salute the minister for her efforts in accomplishing this. Madam Speaker, this truly embodies transformational power, the transformational power of public-private partnerships. To know that 300 direct and indirect jobs were derived from the construction of these housing development, and on this Pinecrest housing development in particular, I would dare to say that it is indeed the young people's time. In addition to Pinecrest, our government has announced a $20 million public-private partnership. And like the Honorable Minister mentioned, the Renaissance at Carmichael, another opportunity for young persons to avail themselves of home ownership and also to be empowered as we go forward. Because as you know, we are the successors of this new Bahama land. Young people are intended to be the primary beneficiaries of these concessions, and we are confident that as the screening processes go forward, more young people and more young Bahamians will be represented. Madam Speaker, as I traverse Nassau Village, and I traverse the Soldier Road area and the Seabreeze area, that all fall within the constituency, I was amazed to find out the composition, confirming that persons derived from Abacos, from Andros, Kidd Island, and also Grand Bahama. And as I spoke to them along my monthly walkabout, I sat down with a Grand Bahamian, Madam Speaker, and they told me about the constant challenges that they had. Blow after blow, Hurricane Dorian, a stalled economy, closing businesses, decreasing tourism. And I was pleased to announce that this budget had them in mind, Madam Speaker. This budget charted the way forward. I announced to them that are they aware that there's a private-public partnership now in effect to revitalize the Grand Bahama International Airport, that the seemingly Grand Lucayan Hotel that we thought we had acquired at a loss was now being sold at a benefit to this New Day government. I was delighted to inform them that their Minister for Grand Bahama was diligently working on their behalf, and I assured them that this New Day government considers them important, and in order to return Grand Bahama and revitalize Freeport as the bustling second city that it definitely is. Second city, that's the second city. Don't worry about it. Madam Speaker, as we spoke on Taylor Street, they told me about the years of inactivity in Grand Bahama. And they expressed to me that they remained hopeful and they had a sense of pride almost to be able to return home. The focus of my reference to Grand Bahama was that we have displaced Bahamians who have relocated throughout the various constituencies, who are desirous of returning home. And in order to return home, we have to provide viable avenues for their return. The composition of this budget does just that. It allows for the much needed stimulus injection. It allows and gives those displaced Bahamians hope that they can return home and thrive in their places of birth. And I thank the Prime Minister and his vision for comprising in composing such a forward-thinking budget. Madam Speaker, I mentioned, of course, the sale of the hotel, the Grand Lucayan, and I also mentioned the public-private partnership of the airport. But in addition to those infrastructure and economic advances, I was pleased to also take note of the revitalization of the Grand Bahama Hospital that is also coming on stream. New hospital. These are the things and these are the components that a full-bodied budget should be comprised of. Health, economic finances, and also housing and infrastructure. I do believe that Grand Bahama and the associated family islands are well on their way. Madam Speaker, we're in the 21st century, and I could not neglect to reference the digital side of it all. The world is ever evolving at an unprecedented pace, and currencies follow suit. Our administration's transformational choices within the cryptocurrency market, now worth a staggering $3 trillion, will place the Bahamas in the vanguard of this field as a world leader. At the same time, Bahamians have the opportunity to reap the benefits of a diversified and digitized economy. Plus, increased businesses from investors, business people, and others within this burgeoning space. Madam Speaker, my constituency is primarily residential. It's zoned with very small facets of commercial areas. So when we talk about business injection, we understand as Nassau villagers that our opportunities were very limited. But with this new digitization, with the ability to now build out and really construct the digital economy, I have impressed upon my constituents that they have a viable option as well to work from their home, to utilize the internet to not only take their products and their personal, I would say, desires financially, internationally. I believe that our involvement in cryptocurrency and digital assets and the digital space itself will allow and afford young Bahamians a completely new sector to venture into, even from a primarily residential area. Madam Speaker, in October 2021, FTX Digital Markets, the world's second largest cryptocurrency exchange, relocated its headquarters to the Bahamas. Co-CEO FTX Digital Markets, Ryan Salame, purports that over 20 companies are in conversation with FTX to move their headquarters to the Bahamas because of our clear regulatory framework for digital assets, which removes structural uncertainty. Madam Speaker, young persons have pined for diversification of industries. Young persons have pined and Bahamians have pined for diversification of the sector. As we walked, each one of us walked about, we were constantly met with, do we continue to rely on tourism? Has the golden goose been cooked? COVID-19 brought this to a staggering truth and showed us that we had to diversify. So as we move toward digital assets, I was pleased to know that the world took us seriously, that the world valued the Bahamas' financial and regulatory framework so much that they were able and willing to come to the Bahamas. Madam Speaker, this is the essence of international relations. This is the essence of foreign affairs. We talk about foreign direct investment, right? We talk about venturing externally to attract interest within our country, to bring investment into our domestic markets. This is an example of just that, Madam Speaker. To have the Bahamas highlighted as one of the preferred go-to persons for digital assets, and now with cryptocurrency. Madam Speaker, in April 2022, the Bahamas became a digital assets hub by hosting the Crypto Bahamas Conference, a joint partnership between FTX and SALT, a finance conference company. Some 2,000 industry leaders, including the biggest proponents of digital assets worldwide, were present, including the Honorable Tony Blair, the former Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, and serial venture capitalist Kevin O'Leary. Now, what does this all mean, Madam Speaker? Our economy, like I mentioned before, had solely relied on tourism and banking as its backbone for far too long. By establishing the Bahamas as a crypto powerhouse with governing legislative framework during the industry's inception, our country will attract a new cadre of Bahamians to grow industry, ripe with potential, and it will undoubtedly experience exponential growth and build upon the Bahamas' sublime financial expertise and continue to attract other crypto businesses, resulting in exactly what I mentioned before, transformational change, increased revenues, and more investment within our economy. Madam Speaker, there has been great debate and great discussion surrounding carbon emissions, climate change. I was delighted that once again our administration was moving forward with another revolutionary trend to diversify our economy while protecting our pristine natural resources and marine habitats by selling carbon credits. Carbon credits was designed as a system to reduce greenhouse gases as a way to incentivize countries and companies to reduce their carbon emissions. Madam Speaker, we engaged in a discussion in the Soldier Road area of Nassau Village, I would say last week. And one of my constituents asked me, well, how is it possible for a company, or why would a company refer to the decrease of carbon emissions? Not only how is it possible? I was astonished to find out that the cruise liner being, the Royal Caribbean, if I'm not mistaken. Royal Caribbean actually employed a solar park to offset their carbon emissions. And when you think about that, in the United States, the reality is that there is a sector for private companies to contribute and also offset their carbon emissions. These opportunities can also be leveraged by the Bahamas in a way that benefits not only us presently, but the successive generations as we go forward, Madam Speaker. I was delighted to find out and confirm that our administration expects to sell blue credits on our ocean-based credits on the international market. Coastal ecosystems store plentiful amounts of carbon dioxide. Therefore, they help lessen the effects of climate change. To quote our trailblazing Prime Minister at the Caribbean Renewable Energy Conference in Miami, and I quote, "I am now seeing greenhouse emissions as garbage, and I see our carbon sinks as garbage collectors that are providing free service to the world. It is time for us to get paid for our service." Madam Speaker, what does this mean, right? It's been thought long ago that the Amazon were the lungs of the country. That was common belief. That has now been disproven, that not only is the Caribbean or most maritime vegetation, such as green grass and other marine ecosystems, the most effective at reducing carbon emissions. So that opens up another viable sector for us to leverage as we go forward. Because we're out of time, like the Prime Minister says. We have to maximize what we have at our disposal, and we will continue to move forward. Madam Speaker, the Climate Change and Carbon Market Initiative Bill of 2022, I am pleased to refer to has already been passed, which will aid in the protecting of our forests, mangroves, seagrass, and precious coral reefs. Again, the Bahamas is the first nation to pass such legislation. Again, the Bahamas is at the forefront. Again, the Bahamas is leading. Madam Speaker, as companies try to offset their carbon emissions and meet the UN Sustainable Development Goals, the demand for carbon credits is currently exploding. According to Bloomberg, a clean energy research group, by the year 2050, carbon offsets are expected to be at a staggering $245 to $546 billion market. Madam Speaker, in 2050, I will be 54 years old. Right? That's 30 years from now. Well, 30 excess. The reality and why I make mention of it is because these considerations, this dialogue that we're having now, we will continue to have, and they will continue to intensify. And we must be prepared now for leveraging our position later. So I will, and I continue to make reference, because for young persons, the discussions are being had. The decisions are being made, and it's being made in our best interest. Madam Speaker, the decision for the Bahamas to sell blue carbon credits will transformatively help us secure a significant portion of this market in the years to come. For Bahamians, what does this mean? This will result in more jobs in the agriculture and marine resources industry, renewed interest in preserving our country's critical natural resources, augmenting interest in the Bahamas as an international climate change leader, a cleaner, greener Bahamas working toward a 30% reliance on renewable energy by 2030. And of course, forthcoming partnerships with other small island developing states and countries with advanced expertise in carbon markets. Madam Speaker, in my position as Parliamentary Secretary in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, there's one glaring truth. We're all interconnected. The reason we travel abroad is because we lobby for our political agenda and our personal interest. But we must maintain the relationships externally that we have built, and we must leverage them to continue to be a powerhouse regionally and to be influencers globally. Invariably, our nation will lead internationally by selling carbon credits. Though our country contributes very little to global emissions, we are most susceptible to climate change. It's been mentioned time and time again that if a country sneezes, we catch the cold, right? This is an extension of just that. If more developed industrialized countries continue to grow, the sea level continues to rise. The flooding off of the Charles W. Sanders in Mount Tabor Estates, off of Stocks Avenue and my dear Nassau Village continues to retain water. So we continue to lobby to mitigate against these effects. Madam Speaker, over the last 10 years, the Bahamas has been ravaged by strengthening hurricanes like Dorian and Joaquin, contributing billions of dollars to our national debt and causing inexcusable loss of life and property. Our administration realizes the effects of climate change are affecting Bahamians more and more. Rising sea levels, coastal erosion, and increasing weather events such as the recent flooding, which inundated areas of New Providence, including Carmichael, Coral Harbor, and Bay Street. Madam Speaker, I was pleased to be informed that building measures and building codes are now being adjusted, as well as standards, to provide greater resilience. Funding is now being provided to ensure research continues and increase educational opportunities for persons in this area of climate change. It will undoubtedly provide, no problem. Mr. Deputy. It will undoubtedly provide resilience. Madam Speaker, I believe that I was chosen at a time when it was just a good time to be a PLP. And it was a time that young people should step to the forefront. Madam Speaker, I have spoken in depth about climate change and the response nationally. I wish to announce to my dear constituents our Nassau Village's climate change response and flood mitigation attempts. Madam Speaker, Mr. Deputy Speaker, we have entered into discussions and we have with a local company, Flood Mitigation Services, that will provide immediate emergency flood pumping throughout each of the corners of the Nassau Village constituency. Madam Speaker, Mr. Deputy, I'm not simply referring to trucks coming through corners and pumping out water. I'm talking about a sustainable mechanism that would allow for 256 kilowatt Cummins generators and flood pumps to pump 1,320 gallons per hour from any street in Nassau Village. This is what I'm offering, and this is the innovation that I bring as a young PLP to Nassau Village. So I'm pleased to say and comment that at the constituency level, we are making monumental moves as well, right? As work has already begun on the national strategy, focused on incorporating environmental, social, and governmental best practices. I do believe that this strategy and an amalgamated and synchronized strategy posed toward flood mitigation will undoubtedly take us to a new level and provide the much needed relief that my constituents on Stack Avenue, Charles W. Sanders Highway, Linden Pinland Estates, Gleniston Gardens Park North, and all of the other flood-prone areas in my constituency look forward to and will benefit from, Mr. Deputy. Mr. Deputy, as we go on, I was pleased to know that renewable energy was also being employed in the southern part of the Bahamas, most notably Michael, the constituency. I was pleased to know that the solar photovoltaic mechanisms being installed under each house I was pleased to know that the photovoltaic installations on the southern homes in Michael would definitely provide consistent energy and also help to decrease our carbon emissions, and that there were plans to eventually move and allow that same technology to be utilized through the central and northern Bahamas. I am pleased that these types of initiatives are also represented in our budget. And again, I'm pleased that the Family Islands and other islands are benefiting so much from this particular budget. Madam Speaker, I wish to shift focus just a bit and speak about small businesses and small businesses development. Our budget commits to $50 million to small business development per annum via the Bahamas Development Bank, Venture Capital, the Bahamas Agriculture Industrial Corporation, and the Small Business Development Center. Mr. Deputy, most notably, the stellar work of the Small Business Development Center has not gone unnoticed, as I am sure that it will continue to advocate for supporting the evolution of micro, small, and medium-sized enterprises in the Bahamas to increase the sector's ability to provide employment, diversify wealth, and the development of a robust economy. Mr. Deputy, investment in small businesses is ever present in our society. and it's also ever present, most notably in the constituency of Nassau Village. The immediate effect of this support results in thriving businesses, supporting and giving back to communities they serve. In Nassau Village, this entrepreneurial spirit drives community engagement, builds community identity, and better supports the environment by procuring community-produced products and establishing businesses in pre-existing buildings. Businesses like L&A Upholstery, El Shaddai Party Rentals and Supplies, and of course, the one-stop snack shop that is present on Taylor Street come to mind, as well as Gold Circle. Small businesses such as these will receive help to reduce the transaction costs they face when handling cash by utilizing the sand dollar via and undergirded by the Central Bank of the Bahamas. Mr. Deputy, small, micro, and medium-sized businesses constantly make transactions. For Bahamians, this translates to fewer costs for businesses owners and more availability to use digital financial technologies such as credit and debit cards at more businesses throughout the country, which helps reduce the amounts of cash citizens carry. Each of us can attest that we don't really carry that much cash on us. The reality is when you go into a small mom and pop store, 9 times out of 10, they don't have card machines. So what that means is you have to leave the store and they cannot benefit from your patronage. With the utilization of these machines and technology for small businesses, they're able to utilize credit cards and debit card machines. That is a provision being conducted through the Small Business and Development Center. Mr. Deputy, along with these innovative measures to achieve a sustainable, progressive way forward, our administration has made the principles of accountability, transparency, and integrity hallmarks, signaling our transformational shift from the old ways of governance to more apt methods, catering to a new, modern Bahamas. In the speech from the throne on the 6th of October 2021, our administration committed to good governance, predicated upon accountability, transparency, and integrity. Since then, we have operated and worked in view of the Bahamian people to communicate our decisions and mandates and explain our rationale for the betterment of Bahamians. This can be seen through our weekly press briefings led by the press secretary, as it allows our administration to directly inform Bahamians about relevant issues. And is also coupled and backed by in-person input from the relevant cabinet ministers and applicable experts on the subject matter. Mr. Deputy, the reason I refer to the lines of communication being reopened is because government and governance is once again serious business. The press is also present and can engage press secretary or others to pose questions or comments. Continuous press briefings continue to be a resounding success to inform Bahamians and engage them in dialogue about our administration's inclusive decision-making processes. Moving forward, we intend to continue this successful, informative format that will remain transparent, virtuous, and a mechanism for accountability. Mr. Deputy, I repeat, government and governance is once again serious business. Mr. Speaker, Mr. Deputy Speaker, our administration utilizes the feedback from Bahamians to remain accountable and further fuel our agenda. Within a few days of taking office, the cries regarding frequent lockdowns and curfews and restrictive business measures were heard and acknowledged to combat the COVID pandemic. We consulted medical professionals to bring about improvement to the government's response. We promised to adjust protocols based on the science, removing any non-science-based restrictions. We delivered on both promises. Curfews were removed and new rules were established for previously restricted businesses to re-engage their staff. We fully reopened the economy and the government's surplus cash balance improved by a nearly $35 million in the first month alone. Moving forward, we intend to continue and engaging Bahamians in numerous capacities, in public forums, at press briefings, online, via social media, during presentations and in meetings, to name a few. Mr. Deputy, governmental access and proper representation also play a vital role in shifting the mantle of governance in the Bahamas. Gone are the days when we as members of parliament are too busy for our constituents. Left far behind are the days when we are only visible in our constituencies during election to distribute ham or turkey or special occasions. Now more than ever, our constituents and the Bahamian people need representatives who are visible, diligent, and working on their behalf every day. I take extreme pride in being a member of parliament. I'm visible throughout the Nassau Village constituency, and I work assiduously to improve our standard of living. Ensuring potable water is available to all my constituents. Engaging the community, supporting small businesses, organizing community-centric events to foster skills development, and ensuring that the infrastructural maintenance is maintained. Mr. Deputy, I have expounded upon the infrastructural developments of the constituency. I have also introduced our climate change and flood mitigation plans, exclusive to Nassau Village currently. But I also wish to inform that we had a skills-based and job fair that seeks to build and strengthen the Nassau Villager as a whole. The reason being, we must look forward and we must build people, Mr. Deputy. We must ensure that each of our constituents is adequately prepared to survive in the advancing world. My fellow colleagues invariably share my zeal for community service and passion for bettering the Bahamas. Outstanding examples of servant leaders fill this House of Assembly, and we continue to be hands-on, tactical, and innovative representatives. Mr. Deputy, innovation is the way forward. We innovate to remain competitive in an ever-advancing world. An example of innovation coupled with compassion and love for small businesses was instituted by our dear Prime Minister. If you would have noticed, and you should have noticed, OPM's spotlight on Bahamian food businesses and the small businesses that utilize the platform to really market themselves and get their brands nationally. Mr. Deputy, these are the initiatives needed not only to couple government with its electorate and couple government with the population, but it allows us to ensure that each small business and each developing Bahamian feels as though they have equal buy-in and support by the government. Mr. Deputy Speaker, our administration realizes the paradigm shift from the old Bahamas to the new. And in doing so, upon taking office, we shed the old Bahamas' ruins of yesteryear, mainly catering to a society rebuilding itself after severe economic damage due to COVID pandemic, the aftermath of Hurricane Dorian, and just simply put, fiscally unsound decisions that did not have the best interests of Bahamians at heart. In 8 months, we kickstarted our economy, attracted tourists back to our shores, and made considerable progress towards our key priorities of healthcare reform and revitalization and economic stimulation. But Mr. Deputy, all of this is just another day in the office for this progressive Liberal Party government. We have the adequate instruments, we have the personnel, and we have the know-how to accomplish what we set forth. Mr. Deputy, as a former Foreign Service officer, I worked at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs for 8 years. I was able to see the Bahamas' foreign policy taken to the heights, so much so that we were offered a complete completely subsidized, donated foreign affairs embassy in the United Arab Emirates in Dubai. But I was also there to see the fall of that same foreign policy and the Bahamas' presence abroad. I can clearly state that the Bahamas' presence abroad is necessary. In our attempt to combat climate change, we must continue to lobby and we must continue to advocate, along with the main perpetrators and the main producers of carbon emissions. This cannot be done unless we're represented abroad, Mr. Deputy. The realization that the United Nations has engaged the Bahamas to host one of the preparatory COP26 meetings is an amazing testament to our presence and our influence internationally. Mr. Deputy, sadly, this was not always the case. Just 4 years ago, we saw the extreme decline of the Bahamas' presence regionally and internationally. Our Prime Minister's speech at COP26 indicated that we were serious about climate change and we were serious about self-preservation. We were serious about our role and our presence and our existence, future existence in this world. Mr. Deputy, by the strengthening of the Bahamas' diplomatic corps and the appointment of new cultural trade and ambassadors will undoubtedly ensure the fulfillment of our country's diplomatic position internationally. And I wish to thank my primary, the Honorable Member for Fox Hill, for allowing me latitude to operate at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs as the Parliamentary Secretary. Mr. Deputy, as we intend to move our agenda forward, we understand that we need and we must ensure that our stance is known internationally and we remain relentless and unyielding. Just 2 weeks ago, I had the pleasure of receiving the second highest ranking US official in this hemisphere, the Deputy Secretary of State and US Assistant Secretary of Western Hemispheric Affairs, Mr. David Nichols, as he visited the Bahamas and paid a high-level courtesy call on our Prime Minister. Mr. Deputy, discussions centered on shared views regarding peace, security, and democracy, plus the theme of the upcoming Summit of Americas, building a sustainable, resilient, and equitable future. Hence, there was a renewed focus on combating climate change and in the energy security sector. But Mr. Deputy, one thing was blatantly clear to me during that bilateral meeting. The Prime Minister, the Honorable Philip Brave Davis, my Prime Minister, took a stance that gun control was of grave importance to the Bahamas, and he further reiterated that the amendment right, the US amendment right to bear arms should not disenfranchise the Bahamas. As we know, my beloved constituency of Nassau Village was identified by the Citizen Security Justice Program as being a high crime and high violent prone area. We're no strangers to the plague of illegal arms and gun violence, and I took pride in knowing that at the very highest levels, our Prime Minister stood forward and stepped forward and maintained his positions that the US must take a serious approach toward their gun control, as it is currently negatively impacting all of the communities of the Bahamas. Mr. Deputy, this is the type of fortitude that we need at those high-level meetings. This is the type of fortitude that differentiates this New Day government from our predecessors. I feel confident. I'm sure that the constituents of Nassau Village feel confident that our views will be represented adequately and enforced. Mr. Deputy, I close my presentation, and in closing, I think about the resiliency, creativity, and sheer ingenuity of Bahamians. We are blessed with so much to offer ourselves and the world. Yes, we are experiencing challenging times, influenced by the effects of COVID pandemic, the devious effects of climate change, and an economy on the heels of being diversified. However, we remain hopeful as we are transformational. Our actions are compassionate as we partner to help one another, and we continue to synchronize our efforts, because together there's nothing that we cannot achieve. This budget provides an innovative and fiscally sound foundation to address the present and chart a phenomenal way forward for continued success. Bahamians will see job creations, Bahamians will see the expansion of the economy, and Bahamians will see diversification of our economy. Of course, coupled and undergirded with greater accountability and more inclusivity in governmental processes, as each of their representatives remain steadfast. I encourage my colleagues to let us continue to look forward to today, so tomorrow heralds promise and prosperity. May God continue to bless my dear home of Nassau Village constituency, and may God continue to bless the Commonwealth of the Bahamas.
Thank you, Honorable Member. As many? The Chair recognizes the Honorable Member for Golden Gates.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy. In her absence, I would like to continue to convey birthday greetings to the Speaker. May God bless her and favor her with long life and good blessings. Also, I would like to convey happy birthday greetings to the Undersecretary at the Ministry of Public Service, Ms. Renee Bullard, who also celebrates today. But as I stand in this place, Mr. Deputy, I, of course, must give honor and glory to God and praise to Him, for He is my provider, my protector, my joy, my strength, and it is in Him that I live, move, and have my being. He's never left me, nor forsaken me. And of course, my steps are ordered by Him.
Yes, that's right.
I would like to wish a belated, since we talk about anniversaries in this place, I'm happy to celebrate 22 years of marriage to my husband, Herman.
Congratulations.
I'm only 25, but 22 years of marriage. He's been a rock and a string. And of course, greetings to my three amazing daughters, Lauren, Kaylee, and Jada. They're all the apples of my eye, my girls. Of course, to my ever supportive and praying mother, who I know is watching, the biggest PLP, Kay Francis, down there in Southern Shores. I would like to extend my love to her, my siblings, cousins, aunts, uncles. You have to include everyone, my entire family. To my bishop and the Mount Tabor family, who are always praying for me and supporting me. Southern Shores, yes. And of course, to the PM for allowing me, the member for Cat Island and San Salvador, for ensuring that he gave me a seat in his cabinet, which I don't take for granted. And I appreciate his wisdom, his guidance, his support, and his confidence in his team. We keep saying team because that's who we are in this Davis administration. PM has been a shining example of excellence and leadership and strategy and wisdom. and we honor him for that. In his absence, he is gone to attend the funeral of the wife of Livingston Coakley, member for Fox Hill, who is my substantive minister, whom I respect and admire. And I thank him too for his confidence, his support, his wisdom, his patience with me. To the ladies of We Lead and Star Apple, you know who you are. And of course, to the hardworking teams of the Ministry of the Public Service led by our PS Horton, to my team, my personal team, who are my right hand, my left hand, and on some days, my right and left feet. Natasha, Mario, Ronaldo. You guys are the wind beneath my wings through it all, and you are great support. Cannot leave out the fantastic team of Golden Gates and everyone that gives me support, advice, and especially prayers as I do the work for the people. I say, God bless you all. So, Mr. Deputy, I stand here today energized and ready to work on behalf of my people, the Bahamian people, as this government readies its first budget, which we are all very excited about. As always, I stand here in full representation of the people of the Gates, Golden Gates. GG. They say we gated, you just can't see the gates, you know? Their support fuels me and motivates me to do the work that I do. Each day I find inspiration in the words of Matthew chapter 20, verse 6 that says, whoever wants to lead among us must first be a servant. My ambition is to ensure that I am serving the people of this country to the best of my ability, and that the true barometer of success is how many lives we all touch as we serve. How many livelihoods can we impact? And how many futures can we brighten? That is what our work is about. So, Mr. Deputy, we call this budget the way forward because we are charting the course for a renewed Bahamas. And this first budget lays the foundation as a critical first step towards recovery from the damage done over the past 4 years. The Bahamian people have demonstrated great resilience after fighting through 3 crises: the crisis of Dorian, the crises of the pandemic COVID-19, and the crises of poor governance that made a bad situation worse. You know, Mr. Deputy, I'm not going to spend too much time looking back at those days because our budget says the way forward. So I'm here today as the Minister of State for the Public Service to discuss the way forward for the 20,000 plus public servants who are my top priority. We're laying the groundwork for powerful, transformative initiatives for the upcoming budget cycle. And our first priority is and will always be the people. Yes. Everything we do is for the people. Yep. Mr. Deputy, in his absence, the member for Kalani didn't know how right he was last year when he said the next 5 years were going to be about helping the people. Well, the next 5 years is being led by the PLP. Yes. And we've been the party of the people since 1953. That's right. So I'd like to congratulate our Prime Minister on his leadership over the past 8 months. He promised to bring compassionate, competent leadership to the Cabinet of the Bahamas, and he did just that. In 8 months, while operating largely on the previous administration's budget, we were able to accomplish some great things. We reopened the economy and got rid of nonsensical COVID-19 protocols. And I thank you, Prime Minister, for allowing the lifeblood to flow through our economy again. We reopened the schools. Yeah. Thank you, Honorable Member for Engliston, supported by the member for Yamacraw, for a job well done. We did a complete analysis of the country's fiscal state, and we distributed free masks. We implemented free COVID testing, not in Wonderland, Mr. Speaker, nope. Mr. Deputy, but in the Bahamas. Yep, that's right. As always, the member for Tall Pines remains very passionate for doing what is right. and engaging honest dialogue with the Bahamian people. We sold the Grand Lucayan and announced several new projects in Grand Bahama, and I'm sure Grand Bahamians are looking forward to seeing the magic return to the Magic City. The Deputy Prime Minister, the member for Exuma and Ragged Island, has been our go-to guy for all things investment and tourism related. He's been doing a stellar job, but I cannot, Deputy, forget the member for Pine Ridge. My sister, the minister for Grand Bahama, who is a champion for the entire island. Mr. Deputy, we put in place a legislative framework to receive blue carbon credits for our stewardship of the environment. I look forward to seeing how much revenue we can generate on the global carbon market when this initiative is fully rolled out. Of course, respect must be paid to the mighty member for Elizabeth for her efforts to provide her efforts and her work in providing affordable housing solutions to the Bahamian people. Pinewoods MP, our girl, her productivity is unparalleled. Kudos to Elizabeth. The member for Central and Saudi Lutra, bringing sexy back to agriculture. He's definitely been doing his thing in agriculture, marine resources, and family island affairs. And the member for West End and Bimini has also been hard at work providing increased social assistance to the Bahamian people, launching new programs that will restore dignity and empower even more people. Mr. Deputy, all of our cabinet colleagues, parliamentary colleagues have been equally busy, not just in Lizzie, working hard on behalf of the Bahamian people. I don't think there's been a more productive 8 months in the history of any administration. So, Mr. Deputy, the list goes on and on when it comes to what we've accomplished so far. And I've not touched on what we've accomplished at my home, public service. It's actually hard to believe that it's only been 8 months. If we can accomplish all that we did in less than a year while running on a supplementary budget, imagine what we would be able to do during our first complete budget cycle. Well, we won't have to imagine it because we're here. Mr. Deputy, the government's #1 objective in developing this budget was to ensure that relief is felt for all Bahamians. We know we always speak about, especially with this administration, the most vulnerable amongst us. Yes. What use is economic recovery if it leaves people behind, Mr. Deputy? Our policies ensure that as wide a swath of the Bahamian people receives help as possible, because we do it for the people. A primary focus of this budget is to alleviate as much as possible the impact of global hyperinflation. I want the Bahamian people to know that your cries have not fallen on deaf ears. We've heard you. At every cabinet meeting, we explore how we can offer assistance. Each member of this administration is on board and fully committed to delivering relief for you. Measures we've agreed on already include payment increases for public servants, which I will discuss later in my contribution. One of the most anticipated changes is the rollout of a full slate of import duty reductions on numerous items. And this is not a situation where Bahamians only see reductions on plane parts and washing machines. We see customs duty reductions on things that the average person can benefit from. Lettuce, peppers, broccoli, spinach, corn. A whole assortment of everyday items. Vegetables are now completely duty-free. That's right, duty-free. They now attract 0% rate. Nuts, flour, prepared beef, pork, turkey are also now completely duty-free, things that we use every day. And the best thing about this is that we're also stimulating the purchase of many healthy items rather than the typically limited range of foods that are reduced. Most building supplies are now duty-free. We all know how high construction prices have risen since the start of the pandemic. And in some cases, the duty rates have decreased as much as 40%. I'm sure contractors around the country, as well as people on the market to purchase homes, are excited about these reductions. Electrical appliances, electrical supplies, communications devices, and a number of other items are now completely duty-free or were significantly reduced. This is not a comprehensive list, and I encourage all Bahamians to go on the Bahamas Customs Department's Facebook page, where you can see a complete listing posted on May 25th. These are savings that everyone at every level will feel. It's exactly what the Bahamian people need at this time of global hyperinflation. And the Davis administration is doing what it can to ease the burden on all families. Mr. Deputy, over at Social Services, we've increased social service assistance for those who need it. And we are bringing back the RISE program. A conditional cash transfer program that will offer assistance while incentivizing improved social and health outcomes in several areas, but, Mr. Deputy, with dignity. Another initiative that I'm very, very excited about is a new women's shelter, but I will allow the member for West End and Bimini to elaborate on that. And Marathon. We are rolling out a catastrophic healthcare fund to assist Bahamians with severe illnesses and building a new hospital in Grand Bahama that will break ground in this fiscal year. Some big things are happening in Grand Bahama and all around the Bahamas when it comes to healthcare. We're investing more than ever in food security to lower the import bill and empower Bahamian entrepreneurs with great opportunities within agriculture. Speaking of opportunities, we are facilitating wealth generation and ownership opportunities by expanding access to land and home ownership and providing funding for small businesses. When it comes to generating social change, we are on top of that too. We are investing even more in education and training. My cabinet colleague, the member for Angliston, will detail all that her ministry is doing to repair the learning loss that occurred during the pandemic, increase teacher salaries in the face of severe fiscal restraints, fund a new school, and fund training opportunities for those entering the job market. Crime reduction and climate resilience are other vital issues that Bahamians will see addressed in this budget. The one thing that all of these various initiatives have in common is that they are all focused on people first. The Davis administration understands that a healthy and robust people is what will get the economy moving again. It's the people who deliver better social and educational outcomes. It is the people who will create, innovate, and work towards recapturing the Bahamian dream. It has always been the people, but they need the government's support. They need assistance. They need the government to do its part so that they can do their part. One thing about this Prime Minister, this cabinet, the members of this administration, is we will never leave the Bahamian people hanging. The budget is our first step towards recovery and progress. I promise the Bahamian people it won't be the last. Future budgets will build upon this progress, and I can assure you that as the economy recovers and the government's fiscal situation improves, we will continue to deliver for you. Even amid a very difficult fiscal situation, we have done all we can with a limited framework to maximize the relief we can bring to the Bahamian people. Even while working towards decreasing the national debt, we are also increasing wages, reducing customs duties, increasing social service assistance, and investing in business owners. And we're doing it all without a single tax increase. I'm going to read a statement put out by Solomon's. To our valued customers, we are HAPPY, happy to announce, I could spell too, that because of the reduction in customs duty rates that were recently announced by the government, starting Monday, June 6th, you will begin to see price decreases in stores. Immediate effect to the people. Immediate effect to the people. They go on to say, as we continue to receive new inventory on products identified for lower duty rates that are now, or products that are now classified duty-free, you can expect to see the savings being passed on as soon as they are received. We do it for the people. Oh, yes. So as the Prime Minister noted, we are working towards a world-class tax collection operation that will make this administration the most efficient administration in Bahamian history when it comes to capturing lost revenue. Wow. Over the years, we've heard a lot of talk about the amount of money the government misses out on due to fraud and tax avoidance. We've heard about undeclared customs duties and undeclared VAT. But over in the Real Property Tax Department, we've heard the abysmal compliance numbers. Finally, a government is in power that will do what is right by ensuring that everyone pays their fair share. Once again, this is not being done by increasing taxes, but by ensuring that those who can pay do pay. We're talking about hundreds of millions of dollars in increased revenue generated through these efforts. It is enough to significantly improve the government's fiscal health as this administration works towards a 25% revenue to GDP ratio. Once again, I can't stop saying it. It's all about the people. Lower income and middle income people in this country pay VAT at the cash register. They have customs duties costs passed on to them by businesses. These are not really the people impacted by these efforts. The average everyday Bahamian contributes through their consumption of goods and services. There's no avoiding that. But these efforts are about ensuring that everyone from every background pays their fair share. Yeah. Because when a commercial property owner avoids paying real property tax or a business under-declares VAT, the rest of us must shoulder that burden. Those days are now over under the Davis administration. This budget stands on 3 pillars: softening the blow of inflation, creating widespread opportunities, and increasing safety and security, all achieved without raising taxes. Yeah. This is a reminder to the Bahamian people of what good, responsible governance looks like. Mr. Deputy, responsible governance also mandates that we hold people accountable for wrongdoing. Now, I know whenever accountability and transparency are brought up in regards to the previous administration, certain supporters of theirs begin to cry out, why are you bringing up the past? Why you don't focus on what you're doing? Well, Mr. Deputy, this administration is quite capable of multitasking. That's right. We're here to represent the people's interests, Mr. Deputy, and when actions occur that may not be in the people's interests, we're duty-bound to let the people know. I know there are some who would rather not hear about this stuff because it makes them a little uncomfortable. So I'm going to share the word of the Lord with them today. So in that regard, I will refer to Romans 13, 1 through 5. And it reads as such. Obey the government, for God is the one who put it there.
Wow.
All governments have been placed in power by God. For the authorities do not frighten people who are doing right. They frighten those who do wrong.
Wow.
So, this is the word.
This
The word.
This a real word.
So do what they say, and you will get along well. The authorities are sent by God to help you. But if you are doing something wrong, of course you should be afraid, for you will be punished. The authorities are established by God for that very purpose, to punish those who do wrong. So you must obey the government for 2 reasons. This is the word. To keep from being punished and to keep a clear conscience. Here ends the reading. New Living Translation.
Oh, yeah, that's a good
Makes it
one.
really clear.
Yeah, clear. Very clear.
Mr. Deputy,
Busy love.
as it relates to the conclusions of the final internal audit report on the finance and accounting officer scales, as you know, this matter has been in the news, and I believe the Bahamian people do deserve both transparency and resolution on this matter. So East Grand Bahama, the matter is open for discussion with all parties who are being engaged, and we are moving steadily towards resolution. That's the focus. There's no way forward without skilled, empowered, productive public servants. The Davis administration's ability to deliver on this agenda will only be as successful as the public servants doing the work each and every day. Whether you work in public service or not, we can all agree that it is in the nation's best interest for public servants to succeed. Our mission from day one was to set a standard of excellence and maintain it, and we are fully committed to the way forward. Mr. Deputy, when I became the Minister of State for the Public Service, I was happy to take on what is essentially the Human Resources Ministry of the government, with an emphasis for me placed on humans. It is through this ministry that I am afforded the opportunity to directly impact the lives of the tens of thousands of public servants who report to work every day. For the most part, the average public servant wants what anyone wants, a chance to do meaningful work with opportunities for growth and fair compensation. I don't think any objective observer can honestly say that the public service has always lived up to this expectation. But I can tell you that we have already begun taking the first steps to meet those expectations. There's no way forward without skilled, empowered, productive public servants. And the Davis administration's ability to deliver on this agenda will only be successful as the public servants who are doing the work. So, because I have a lot of experience in public service and many years of experience as well in the private sector, I know what a functioning, effective organization looks like. But I also know what a dysfunctional, ineffective organization looks like. Throughout my career, I've seen examples of both. A lot of times, the people working within an ineffective system don't realize that it's ineffective. They may become blind to the issues around them, and sometimes the acceptance of antiquated, ineffective systems becomes culturally ingrained. The public service is no exception. Our mission from day one, as I mentioned, is to set a standard of excellence and maintain it. But cultural change isn't easy, and sometimes there's internal resistance. But the work we're doing is too important to allow naysayers and those comfortable with the old way of doing things to hold us back. We're fully committed to the way forward, Mr. Deputy. I don't talk about change for change's sake or just to talk about it. I'm talking about real substantive change that will impact lives and by extension, livelihoods. Once again, the barometer of my success is the positive impact I can have on as many people as possible. It's for the people. Currently, the government is in talks with trade unions to ensure that we are able to secure an across-the-board increase in salaries for public servants during this budget cycle. Through these increases, we expect most public servants to see an increase in their wages. We are very focused on ensuring that our teachers and nurses are a part of this increase. If anyone is deserving of an increase, it's our teachers and our nurses. Throughout the pandemic, they have been heroic in their efforts. And while we may not have the financial leeway to give kind of huge increases that we would like to give, it's still important that an increase comes across the board for the people. We're prioritizing increasing the public sector minimum wage so those at the bottom of the pay scale can have a little extra in hand to cope with the rising cost of living caused by global hyperinflation during the pandemic. Mr. Deputy, I'm here to speak truth to power. I tell people all the time that I'm in politics, but when I look in the mirror, I don't see a politician. I see someone who simply wants to do the best she can for the people in her care, with politics being an avenue for me to do that work. The truth is that salaries have largely remained stagnant relative to the cost of living for a very long time. There's no surprise to Bahamians who live this reality every day in one of the world's most expensive countries. So, as they say, the struggle is real.
Yes.
Lagging salaries have been a topic of conversation, even within the US and other developed nations. Dollars just don't seem to go as far as they used to anymore worldwide. The harsh truth is that the government's fiscal reality and the available public service budget could never fully address decades of salary stagnation within a single budget. I want the Bahamian people to know that we hear your cries, we understand your frustrations, and this administration is doing what we can in the moment to address your pains. You know, we hear people say it's not enough. We understand that. How could it be? Like I said, we're talking about a global problem that has persisted for decades. But with the limited funds we have, we've endeavored to do all that we can to provide you, the people, with some relief. Yes. So the pay increases we're introducing within the budget are only a first step, a very important step in the right direction. As the economy recovers and the government's fiscal health improves, we can expect more steps to be made in the direction of ensuring that all Bahamians are paid a fair wage. We can't do it all within one budget cycle, but the journey of 1,000 miles begins with one step. Yes. I am proud to be a part of a government that has taken the step to increase salaries in our first full budget cycle, and I am confident that it will provide relief for many during these difficult times. I'm so proud of all that we've already done and all that we're about to do for public servants. In our supplementary budget, we brought annual increments back as an initial step towards providing relief from inflation. We increased pensions to take care of our retirees. Now we are ensuring that our public servants see increases in their wages, and it all adds up, Mr. Deputy, again, for the people. You can tell a lot about a government based on its first steps. First steps reflect priorities. And I hope that we've made it clear to all public servants that they are a major priority. And I hope that any union members listening understand that we're all on the same side as we negotiate in good faith. We all eventually want to see a livable wage become a reality in the Bahamas. Trust me, if anyone wants to see a livable wage for every working Bahamian, it's our Prime Minister. And we support him as colleagues in this administration. And we're fully committed to steering wages in the right direction, but realistically, it will take time. I will personally fight tooth and nail to see this situation improve over the long term, but in the short term, we will do what we can. The last time this country had any kind of minimum wage increase, it was a PLP-led government that did it. And now it's us again.
Yep.
Mr. Deputy, and another major development within the public service is the introduction of a contributory pension. As has been discussed many times within the House, across multiple administrations, the current government pension plan is simply unsustainable. Any plan that doesn't require active contributions is made to be unsustainable. I know there may be some who have some questions about the contributory pension, and the most important question is, what do the people get in exchange for their contributions? Well, I want public servants to know that in exchange for their contributions, they will get better benefits with a plan that can scale up or scale down depending on how much they want to contribute. And this is a big win for public servants, in my opinion. We know that the current pension amounts are meager compared to the needs of our retirees. By getting larger monthly pension payouts, our retirees will have a steady supply of income that they can rely on. The analysis of the contributory pension plan has been done during multiple government administrations, and it's a perfect example of the kind of continuity between administrations that is embraced by this Davis administration. When something is a good idea, like a contributory pension plan, it should be built upon, not canceled for political reasons. We are ushering an era of political maturity and leaving petty behaviors to the past. I remember when the previous administration canceled the RISE program, West End and Bimini. I don't know if they were aware, but conditional cash transfer programs are some of the most well-studied, results-driven social interventions in the world. They've been successfully implemented across multiple contexts, including those similar to ours. To have the Bahamas to be one of the few countries in the world in which such a program was canceled was a national and international shame. Yes. It only hurt Bahamian people by getting rid of a source of additional monetary support that also promoted positive social outcomes. We have to move beyond these kind of politics-first approaches to governance if we want to gain momentum with our national development plan. We're now conducting our final analysis on the contributory pension plan to determine how we will move forward. What I can tell you is that the intent is to have better benefits and a portable plan that can be carried with the beneficiary even if they leave the public service. It's their plan that they've been contributing to. So they shouldn't lose it if they no longer work for the government. This is a stark contrast to the current system and is needed to ensure that we are properly supporting retirees. In coming months, public servants will be made aware of the details of this plan, and we will bring forth relevant legislation during this fiscal year. Those who are already permanent and pensionable should know that they will have the option of joining in on this contributory pension plan to improve upon the benefits that they already will receive. The Davis administration is once again delivering in a big way for the public service. Mr. Deputy, on my first day on the job as Minister of State for the Public Service, I began addressing the promotions backlogs that prevented many worthy candidates from receiving the promotions they deserve. Anyone who is familiar with the Ministry of Public Service can tell you there was literally a mountain of files sitting on a desk untouched. I don't know what the priorities of my predecessor were, but it seems that ensuring people got their promotions that they earned was not on this list of priorities. I really empathize with everyone who was impacted for this delay, and it was a tragedy. Think of all the careers whose advancements were put on hold, keeping people away from the pursuit of their passion and their dreams. Think of all the salary increases stuck in limbo as a result of this backlog. People made plans in anticipation of increased our incomes, only to wait 4+ years with no progress. So I couldn't let that continue, Mr. Deputy. We must always focus on the human side of human resources. We talk about backlogs. You agree with me, Sinan? Glad you agree. East Grandma, you agree, no? So when we talk about backlogs in terms of systemic inefficiencies, we must never forget, and I always lament this, that each untouched file, each untouched recommendation for promotion sitting on a desk, sitting in a filing cabinet, represents the hopes and dreams of a real person. Each day that we work through another pile, I feel encouraged that we can make our people feel respected and valued again, and morale is increased. Can you imagine having to delay, and this happens, the burial of a loved one because death benefits were delayed? Not anymore. Imagine the pain of having a loved one pass away and the government fails to live up to what is promised as an employer, making an already difficult period even more difficult. We've now improved that process at the public service, and we're working to ensure that it never, ever, ever happens again. Never, ever, ever, never. In life and death, the public service must honor its commitments in a timely manner. This kind of failure is unacceptable and will not be happening on the Davis administration's watch. So, Deputy, now I know that Customs Department is eagerly waiting, not only NABI's customs officers around the world, the island. They're waiting on news of their promotions. And I can assure them that an update is coming. I want to remind all ministries. I put customs because Nabi made sure I put a word in for them. But I want to remind all ministries and departments, as well as all public servants, that the Ministry of Public Service works on recommendations. We can only process what we have. I encourage those who are in charge of making submissions to us to please send them in as quickly as you can, keeping in mind that every delay is critical during the hard times we're living in. This is a perfect example of how the PLP brings competent, compassionate leadership to the forefront of governance. While other priorities like fiscal deficits and foreign direct investments often get all the focus, this government is also focused on empowering and respecting individuals. We will not allow delayed promotions to slip through the cracks again. That is my word. Mr. Deputy, each day, the team, the hard-working team at the Ministry of the Public Service, work hard to get this done while addressing other key priorities.
One minute,
Yes, sir.
Honorable Member.
Mr. Deputy, we've been informed that we might be off air, but it might be an appropriate time
For lunch?
for us to take the lunch break because the member is about to enter.
Is there a seconder?
for speech.
Oh, wow.
Madam Speaker,
Everybody ready to go?
Mr. Deputy, I move that we suspend until 3 o'clock this afternoon.
It has been moved and seconded that the business of the House be suspended till 3 p.m. As many are in favor, will remain seated. Those opposed will stand. The motion is carried. The business of the House stands suspended to 3 p.m.
All rise.